Overwatch. It sounds like you guys liked what you saw.
In 2017, Blizzard has its peak with the peak of success of Overwatch, long since its announcement at BlizzCon in 2014 and its final release in 2016. Overwatch was a worldwide phenomenon in 2017, revolutionizing the whole hero shooter genre, so a lot of people admired the game back then, before all the downfall happened. Some so much that they decided, hey, let's make our own Overwatch. You saw plenty of clones of Overwatch over the years, Lawbreakers, Battleborn, and especially one in particular called Heroes of Warfare. This one caught the Blizzard's Chinese publisher NetEase enough to get sued and pulled off from the iOS App Store in the same year 2017. The irony of this is that Overwatch didn't really invent the genre, because if you know me, you know I know that there's a game that even outlived Overwatch as its mentor. Team Fortress 2, baby! Woo! You'd also know that Team Fortress 2 was also successful since its days in the orange box. Valve did find its initial golden goose, and I mean, just look at it. But all Blizzard did was to grab that game and twist it just enough so they could also somehow milk their own twist for a lot of money. But okay, you might be asking, Joan, why in the name of Jim Flynn are you starting a video about YouTube copycats with Overwatch and Team Fortress 2? Well, a typical formula of video essays is to start with an introductory example to the subject you're dedicating your video essay about. And also, you also tend to see this pattern with H-Bomber Guy's videos. Like, for instance, his video is about the Roblox oof sound, which started similarly with talking about the Wilhelm scream for a bit, for even his video about plagiarism on YouTube, which started conveniently about a case of media plagiarism in the 1970s with Brillo. You should know that I expect to be thrown at me the accusation of me being an H-Bomber Guy clone or copycat, as well as other sorts of content creators, and I tend to play off with this as much as possible as a gag of this channel and the sort. Art does not exist in a vacuum, for sure, but there is a fine line between being inspired by Overwatch and literally copying Overwatch, Greasy Randy style. My way of working was copying other YouTubers to try to find my own voice. I've been a copycat of several content creators in the lifespan of my YouTube career. I've copied I Hate Everything, Jem Stephanie Sterling, H-Bomber Guy, even people like Sam Hyde to some degree when I was in the alt-right. Please forget that. But the whole pattern of this is that I tend to add in my own twist into cloning myself from these other YouTubers. When I used to copy I Hate Everything, I had the intro with etchy music and the sword with the same way I did with Steph, and I didn't really literally copy all the time the same jokes and Sam Hyde repeating all the time. With H-Bomber Guy, it seems I not only adapted and twisted his videos' writing and narrative skills, but also twisted around the style and aesthetic of it. And that's why I wear this goth coat and gloves like it was a bad knockoff of Bunleth. Connie called me a dollar store circle for that matter. But I'm not the only one being a clone of some YouTubers at this point. In fact, YouTube copycats have been a phenomenon similar to that of Overwatch and Team Fortress 2 for a really long time, since the inception of YouTube itself. 2005 had a plethora of doing people similar blog and viral comedy sketches since Fred and Schmoz were a thing back then. So you might be wondering, what's the exact science behind YouTube copycats and why do YouTubers copy each other YouTubers all the time? Well, we're here to deep dive in this complete ripoff of H-Bomber Guy's plagiarism video into the world of YouTube copycats and why do they exist. So in my Mentor Harris fashion, buckle up, because I'm going to do the best thing I can ever do in my career, explaining shit with facts and logic and reason. Yeehaw! Okay, so if you're familiar with the YouTube landscape for a bit, you know that the accusation of being a copycat of someone else gets thrown around so much that it's just blurred its meaning. So I know there's no exact universally agreed definition on YouTube of what's a copycat.
The dictionary definition of copycat is an informal, derogatory even definition of someone who imitates or plagiarizes someone else to near totality. But I've seen so many people on YouTube accuse anyone of being a copycat, even if the copycat in question doesn't plagiarize 100% the original content they're supposed to copy from. And this is just because, as I'll explain later in this video, even the similar editing formats that people are using on YouTube. Back in the early days, I don't think anybody doing viral comedy sketches on YouTube could be called a smarsh copycat for that matter. They're just probably YouTube comedians of the sort. One of the earliest cases of copycat phenomena on YouTube was the Reply Girls phenomenon around 2012, thanks to a particular channel called Reply Girl, which is run by Alejandra Gaitan. She saw a massive amount of minimal success doing this exploit on YouTube, so eventually she spawned a bunch of Reply Girl clones there, like Megan Speaks, where they could easily game the system for quick revenue, because back then, anyone could easily join a partner program at that point in time. You can argue the quality of this videos was subpar, but as I will later point out in this video, there's clearly a monetary incentive behind this. It is similar to a certain recurrent trend among those who do not have the patience or talent to do something of quality, riding bandwagons. Back then, when montage parodies were popular, everyone wanted to do them. When Leafy and H3H3 were popular, everyone wanted to make commentary videos. Then, when people saw what Quentin Reviews and HBomberGuy were doing, people started shading out video essays, probably myself included. This is a way to stay relevant on YouTube, but the jarring thing about it is that it further alienates the previous audience in favor of an unknown new one that you don't even know if it's going to come. It's like literal gamble, especially if you're not making quality content of sorts.
But Joan, you may ask, isn't imitation some sort of flattery? Well, yes, not always. It is a form of profit exploitation. Sometimes imitating someone's successes or formula on YouTube can come out of a place of appreciation or respect for the original content, which brings us to the next topic in hand. We're going to tackle a few case studies of copycat phenomena that happen on YouTube or even in similar video platforms, just to make a point. You see what I'm doing there? Harris will be proud. Touchdown!
The angry video game nerd is, do I need to explain it to you? I don't think HBomberGuy will want to bother explaining to you for the nth time who James Rolfe of the angry video game nerd is, so I don't think I want to bother either. But just to say, James Rolfe and AVGN are pretty much a household name on YouTube.
With the success of James Rolfe and AVGN, there has been a massive flurry of angry game and media reviewers on YouTube. Arid Gamer, Game Dude, Spoonie, Mario the Plumber, Eric Man Super, the pissed off angry hardcore gamer guy.
The Nintendo shit cube.
The angry video game nerd has spawned a flurry of countless clones or copycats, and not just to cling to the relevancy and money that James Rolfe generates, because let's face it, this was around the time where it was not as easy to monetize content on YouTube as it is now, except if you're able to sell your own merch or DVDs, which was a bit tricky and complicated. These generally come from a sign of admiration from James Rolfe's works most of the time, and not just trying to earn as much YouTube revenue as he does. The guy is clearly one of the earliest examples of copycat phenomena existing on YouTube, but I think even then, some of these copycats came there just to earn the same cash as the angry video game nerd.
Take for instance Game Dude, one of the most notorious AVGN clones in Canada.
A fucking leaf.
Who was literally obsessed with James Rolfe and the nerd for a good while. Game Dude's formula apes one-to-one James Rolfe's formula to a T, with the swearing and colorful insults as well. But even then, it was not safe from mockery from the AVGN fanbase, calling him an AVGN ripoff. This is one of the guys next to the Arid Gamer who dedicated his whole life to self-promote his own content on AVGN's videos, comment sections for a while, to the object of absolute ridicule from the YouTube community as a whole. His videos became a target of downvoting, and eventually Game Dude became so obsessed with getting 3 stars or more in his videos that if he didn't get 3 stars or more in any video he made, he removed it, heavily modify it, and re-upload it. So people, even fans of his, became tired of constant re-uploads of his old content just popping up over and over again with absurd levels of modifications that make no logical sense. I'm not going to mention the later implications this game dude has gotten himself into too, but this is eerily similar to that of someone like Direct Gamer or any of these other AVGN clones. A lot of these feel unnatural and even force themselves to swearing so much that they can find the same formula of swearing over and over, which goes in the line of, I'd rather X than to play Y. I'd rather stick a porcupine up my butt than play this shitty game. Ooh, that's some biting graphic imagery there. If you don't feel pity for the people who are so desperate to emulate AVGN's swearing that much, you at least will feel that sort of cringe you usually get with these types of channels. And yeah, okay, I get it. Some of these channels are very passionate about their craft, but if you think about it, it's a bit forced.
But some people who could be considered back then AVGN clones in some regard took an important twist to the AVGN formula, even to the point of not just being angry reviewers about just video games. Angry Joe is an angry game reviewer that still remains today. But he takes an important aesthetic twist compared to AVGN. Angry Joe doesn't rely on the same swearing formula as AVGN himself, good grief, and the energy of anger is mostly maintained on the same level as Jim Schroff's creation, which is great. It puts a twist onto the angry reviewer formula for a bit. The nostalgia critic is the AVGN of movies, but he changes the formula of not just being an angry reviewer, but also being a Looney Tunes character at a lot of points. Then there's people like Linkara for comics, Todd in the Shadows for music, and so on and so forth. These sorts of people really show how we got to make the distinction in the fine line between inspiration and outright plagiarism. Okay, not everyone is going to be successful at being the new AVGN, and not everyone is putting their twist in their formula. Look at how that usually turns out. But this case study is pretty tame in comparison. Following cases I'm going to mention afterwards are not going to come as much as gestures of inspiration or appreciation for the original content. And as I said previously, a lot of these come from a monetary incentive, some even to the point of being stuck in 2016.
Leafy is here, or Leafy for short, is a content creator. Oh, sorry, let me correct that. Leafy is here, or Leafy for short, is a disgraced content creator whose content revolves around the niche of cyberbullying. Oh, hold on, let me correct that too. Leafy is here, or Leafy for short, is a disgraced content creator whose content revolves around the niche of complicated cyberbullying. It's like you were about to see a fossil from 2016 frozen in there, and it could still talk. The guy, at least if you've been living on a rock in the last half a decade, has been terminated from YouTube in charges of cyberbullying. How convenient. But even today, he has spawned a plethora of similarly egregious Leafy clones and copycats with the exact same style as his. Like, his content is mostly vaguely reacting to children's content and similar, but making the most basic of insults possible in a very offensive way. To call it surface level is an insult to the ground floor. If you're not happy with it, oh, don't worry, it's always complemented with CSGO's surf of Overwatch gameplay in the background, like what some sort of attention-grabbing king jiggling tear dancing cause on your face. It's the most basic out of the most basic. Between 2016 and 2017, everyone, including creators like Paul Cynical and such, rode the bandwagon of creating content similar to Leafy in every conceivable way. CSGO surf footage and all. These topics revolve around targeting a kid or a person who can be subjected to their audience's harassment, and I can guess you see now why Leafy was banned in the first place. But even today, there's still a plethora of Leafy clones popping up like some sort of fucking cancer slowly contaminating the body of YouTube for some other reason. This is something I found while researching for this topic about Leafy clones, and often pointing out videos such copycats, and say a lot of these videos just seem to be still stuck in the same 2016 sauce, it seems.
Instead, we're gonna look at some of the fucked shit they create on Rule 34 while I sit here and wish I never fucking existed.
Funny that while finding a lot of these videos, a lot of these is just taken down for harassment and bullying. I just wonder why. And a lot more are being turned private. What the hell is going on? You can easily notice here that Leafy's formula is literally the same here. The same titles, thumbnails, and so on and so forth, mostly coming from teenage zoomer white incel boys who have no other talent than just recording themselves playing a pixel video game in the background.
How's it going, guys? The Bulgarian Gamer here. I just wanted to talk about the recent Leafy / H3H3 drama that happened. Like, it is happening. It didn't happen because it's not over yet, but...
Man, you don't sound so confident in yourself. Maybe the gunpoint of items is holding you a little bit too hard. Some of these don't want to trigger the wrath of YouTube's community guidelines bots too much, so instead, they tend to target either people who can't or don't bother to defend themselves, or just react to various memes that they deem cringeworthy, normally akin to this current age. Which is a bit depressing, not gonna lie, and a bit cringe.
These people are obviously risking it, if not completely risking getting demonetized or an outright YouTube ban. They'll never be as blunt as Leafy used to be when it comes to the quality cyberbullying Leafy did. Like, it's clearly evident a lot of these channels took the YouTube news by now, and there's no monetary incentive possible there because of the risk of being demonetized or banned. It's also most of the time like a time capsule containing a big lump of shit and notes with slurs from 2016 and 2017. There was no point of preserving it, not even its stinking essence. A lot of the Leafy copycats of yore moved on to greener pastures as of now. Parasinico, for instance, is making video essays on one channel and drama news on another, but it's not just outright cyberbullying anymore. He has a podcast with Colossal is Crazy, Dull and Dark, and Nerd City right now, and works alongside other creators and plenty of other projects. Leafy is not so fortunate. This case of copycats is a strange one because the Leafy cyberbullying type content is so risque, not many people are willing to risk it, and the people who want to ride the toes are either toning down the level of their content enough to not be cyberbullying, or they're going to terminate it off of YouTube right now. There's also the fact that Leafy didn't really grow out of the 2016 phase of being ecchi for the sake of being ecchi and just being an awful person in general, so that is still going on in his social media too, which is clear evidence that he hasn't changed a slight bit. This case, either way, is a mixed bag. There are people willing to imitate Leafy out of admiration for something, and people who are just there to steal Leafy's revenue throne. But unlike the AVGN clones, the intentions of cloning Leafy as a Leafy clone are shadier than just appreciating Leafy's content, at least originally, because we're basically talking about backstabbing snakes in here. They're not usually the nicest people in town, in all honesty. I mean, what do you expect from people who make cyberbullying videos? It's not like they're going to be nice people. The people admiring Leafy are not there for Leafy's personality, though. They're there for the cyberbullying part and how it often was brazenly displayed on a platform like YouTube. They just like the part where they can also pretend to be free speech absolutists by throwing slurs freely on any platform until they get banned eventually. But this content is evident of one thing. A lot of people are willing to exactly copy one-to-one Leafy's content formula, no matter the cost. And true, this content type is dying right now and it's never going to come back in relevancy, good grief, but there's another type of content that does something similar. It's more family-friendly, sort of, and outright comes out of so much insecurity out of oneself that they're willing to just try to make as many millions as the guy who invented the genre in plain jealousy. And that's none other than...
Hey, how's it going, bros? My name is PewDiePie.
Okay, so before I go on as planned with MrBeast, I'd like to point this one out. This might sound like a particularly strange case, but doing additional research for this video's second draft of the script, I thought, hey, why not mention PewDiePie in the process since he also had a plethora of countless copycats of him? PewDiePie is a particularly strange case. It's very rare to copycat someone so much that it becomes a YouTube subgenre by itself. But thanks to PewDiePie's eventual popularity, an approach to a really old YouTube genre has been twisted into the modern YouTube landscape and have influenced later cases that will be mentioned in this video.
PewDiePie, long before MrBeast took his throne, was YouTube's poster child for a while, until he fell off and retired. Felix Kjellberg is argued to be the forefather of the modern YouTube Let's Play genre, considering for a long while that he has been the most subscribed channel on the platform. He had his particular twist on the Let's Plays, where he usually plays horror games or anything similar, overreacting to the happening gameplay in a comedic and obnoxious fashion.
Ah! Barrels! You fucking barrels!
With this, PewDiePie has PewDiePied See what I did there? PewDiePie has spawned countless beauty clones over the course of time, including but not limited to Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Brain Grumps, Pony Plays, Joxcast, Dan TDM, Stampy Longhead. Even the PewDiePie influence has corrupted the website machinima.com. A website dedicated to actual machinima videos has been turned into a content mill dedicated to PewDiePie style content. Holy fuck! It's ironic that for a while Machinima had PewDiePie on their ship until PewDiePie caused the Apocalypse version 0.5 and destroyed Machinima by making a homophobic joke or something on one of his videos, kind of like he did repeatedly over and over again.
What a fucking
Nuclear bomb!
Like I said, this is a particularly strange case because with all these copycats, so to speak, we're not calling all these people PewDiePie clones all the time and call it a day. But instead what happened is that they created a whole paradigm shift in the genre of YouTube Let's Plays and created a whole subgenre by itself. The Let's Play genre on YouTube is older than PewDiePie, it's obvious. I will be daring to say that Darkseidfell got in there before Felix ever stepped his toes into the thing. But what PewDiePie and his little greedy minions did was make a twist on the Let's Play genre in a subgenre that involves more the personality of the Let's Player and his often exaggerated reactions more than just the gameplay itself, which will be pretty much the wish for everyone else copying other famous YouTubers, especially considering the following case. And that's when we're finally tackling, after so much blue balling, the one true YouTube god.
Jimmy, or more commonly known as MrBeast, is the face of the entire YouTube, who will be the most subscribed channel in the entire platform if it wasn't for T-Series. And now that MrBeast is attempting to challenge T-Series like his predecessor did, I cannot feel anything good about it. But so far, MrBeast has a very successful way for creating content, not just by editing and writing or even titles and thumbnails, but also by his own work ethic. It is kinda impressive how he manages to do this with a minimally sized team. The general genre of his videos are challenge videos, which either involve MrBeast making a stunt or either by putting someone else to a challenge to get a substantial amount of money from MrBeast. These videos require not just a huge input of effort, but also a huge input of money. Jimmy scripts to the last cent of his millionaire revenue to make these challenge videos, like putting someone to live in a grocery store for 45 days or even bathing himself in a pit of slime. The usual formula of this videos is a basic type of storytelling that MrBeast has somehow mastered. It's no wonder how he's now the poster child of YouTube. His videos are the videos that garner the most watch time on the platform, and not just by lengthening the video to hours of video length, but by grabbing the most attention possible. And that's because he has figured out the sort of the perfect formula to create content that can be consumed by a much wider audience in general, like some sort of amateurish reality TV show. He's rightfully so the McDonald's of YouTube, so to speak. So it's clearly evident a lot of channels want to copy and imitate his success. This phenomenon is usually called the MrBeastification of YouTube, where there's tons and tons of similar professionally made content, made as the brain equivalent of fast food. The MrBeastification of YouTube also implies that there's too many people copying MrBeast's formula and style so much that a platform has become stale in some way in terms of what type of content to consume. That if you're not watching video essays like this one, for instance. MrBeast said it right in an interview with Colin and Samir, by the way.
There's like inspiration and then there's just stealing. And so many people just steal what I do. Like so many people literally just put their face on my face.
Right.
Thanks, Jimmy. You just got ahead of me.
MrBeast is not just a role model for all these MrBeast copycats and clones. He's also a point of reference, financially or otherwise, on how to approach generating content. And you can say, like in previous cases, a lot of people can be inspired by MrBeast in any way. Challenge videos like the ones he does are not a new genre of videos that MrBeast invented, even though he's the one popularizing that style of challenge videos. But then there's the people who copy-paste his videos on their own channel, which is an entire rabbit hole of content by itself and speaks volumes about how people approach generating the same content as MrBeast. MrBeast is a cool guy most of the time. He's humble, he gives away nearly all his money to people who actually need it, which is kind of cool. And in the meantime, the only source of revenue he's got, the YouTube ad revenue, gives him back his millions to him, so he keeps giving them away to other people and spendings. This way, Jimmy has an incentive to maybe just make people happy in some way or another and perhaps entertain them, even though it's basically the fast food of YouTube. It is still an honorable approach of sorts to making cash and giving it back. Now let's look at that channel like Morgs and the Stokes twins, who do exactly the same type of content as MrBeast. I'm going to fucking hate myself for this.
Morgs and the Stokes twins are evidently two of the majority of MrBeast clones that we're going to analyze to make a point in this video. Morgs, to be more precise, and a proper fucking British version of MrBeast, has done an exact copy of MrBeast's swimming in slime video. Now, MrBeast's version of the slime video is pretty old, and like I said, it's pretty humble and straight to the point. You literally see MrBeast swim in slime for 24 hours.
Now, opening up Morgs' video, the one that's literally the same, and one of the fucking 3 is made in total, I get 2 YouTube ads, and in the first minute, his mom tells him to please subscribe to the channel if she kicks the slimy limeys in the football volley.
If I can kick the football and knock all the slime over, everyone watching this has to subscribe. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, fuck off, Mike. You didn't kick off all this slime.
And right after 3 minutes in, he tells me to download Dragon City by clicking the promo code SquiddaddleSquidoodle to get 20% off of my Bongo Burger.
You're probably wondering, Morgs, what are you going to be doing for 24 hours in a slime bath? I'm going to be playing my new favorite app, Dragon City.
And right at the end of the video, he sells tickets for his friggin' tour. Link down below. Jesus fucking Christ.
Guys, come see me and Mom on our very first tour. Guys, go get tickets for our first ever tour right now. Link is in the description.
Surviving 24 hours in the world's smallest country.
Behind me is the Vatican.
Hold on, how big is the Vatican again? 49 hectares. And which is the smallest country? Hold on. Ah, well, so it's the Vatican, so he didn't get that wrong at all. I could have sworn it will be that something like the mini country that Caucasia was based on or something. I don't know what it's called.
I'm gonna be surviving.
Oh, it's called the Republic of Molossia. There you go.
And I'm gonna be surviving completely alone with only 10 euros. It's the same size as the Mall of America and 4 times smaller than the Fortnite map. It has the highest crime rate and is technically the most powerful state in the world.
I'm sorry to break your bubble, kid, but Venezuela has the highest crime rate in the world. The Vatican has a small population, so in terms of crime rate, it doesn't mean shit compared to Venezuela's thousands, if not millions. How do you even get factual information so wrong for clicks? Just look into a random bullshit content mill blog and call it a day. Ah! Basically, this whole video is just trouble bait at this point. I can't imagine Morgs doing this sort of shit during 24 hours, even recording stuff he's not allowed to record legally and then getting himself shit canned in prison or something. That would be funny, innit? Andrew Tate controls my life for 24 hours. Oh, now that's a doozy.
But before that, I've got another challenge to complete.
Your editor misspelled challenge there, but I don't mean this in a way to make fun of dyslexia or something, but this just reeks of laziness. This is just flexing money on top of money on top of money. You telling me you can't afford an editor that can do a proper fucking spell check?
Watching this video made me feel like Malcolm McDowell in the Clockwork Orange with his eyes peeled open. I have literal shell-shock style Vietnam PTSD from watching this. I'm not joking. But I can guarantee the Stokes twins are no better.
Mr. Milkman! Got any extra milk? Wait, where's the milk?
Right here! The spaghetti and meatballs might look good, but they taste way too healthy.
Way too healthy! We're all living in America!
We bought 250 fan Amazon products like a giant blob, this invisible chair.
There's actually one thing is suspension of disbelief, and another is treating your audience like they were fucking actual fucking idiots. Come on, it's insulting.
We're surviving in the most extreme places like the world's loudest room, the world's quietest room.
What? Sorry. What the fuck? What does correlate as the world's loudest room or the world's quietest room? They're just making shit up, you fucking frauds. This content is not for children. It's not even for fetuses. It has to be made by an AI whose understanding of how to make children's content is limited. Okay. Well, there's something strange about this. Too much cringe, if you will. But a lot of the editing and style of the video seems incredibly out of place or just offbeat. Like, some of it doesn't even make any logical sense. Like I said, it's like an AI like ChatGPT wrote these videos without barely understanding what correlates as content. Most of these videos especially are spoon-feeding information to you like a mommy bird chewing up food and spinning it back into your mouth like a baby bird. Yummy, yummy, yum, yum. It's just too infantilizing and condescending in tone. I don't think it's even made for people or children. It's made for the sake of getting algorithm points or something. Like, they probably get the idea of how to produce a basic MrBeast type video, but they just get it just wrong. Well, what if I tell you that none of these videos are original? That in fact, they're stolen.
Okay, so let's analyze the last 12 videos on Morgs and the Stokes Twins channels. If we do a Google Lens search on a screenshot of these thumbnails and titles, you notice that nearly all these videos are either unoriginal ideas or directly stolen from other similar MrBeast clones. On the Stokes Twins, for instance, 11 of the 12 videos there are stolen, either from someone else's idea, plot, thumbnail, or title. The Stokes Twins are well known for stealing other people's ideas for videos one-to-one, and that's why most of the time they feel awkward to watch, like they don't get the full picture of the videos they're ripping off. Morgs, on the other hand, on the same type of 12 video screenshot, 9 of the videos are stolen or rip-offs. The only exception are just too specific to Morgs himself, but you already get the full picture here. A lot of MrBeast clones have ended up in this sort of MrBeast event horizon where they end up ripping each other off when they run out of MrBeast videos to rip off. Is that fucking absurd? And even then, a lot of these videos have artificial nature to them, to the point of being too obvious when they hired too many paid actors and all that stuff. You could argue that at least some MrBeast videos had some level of acting in them, or showmanship, but these MrBeast clones are too fucking obvious with this sort of shit.
Oh my god, is he here? I'm kind of nervous, but let's go open up the door.
I am the strongest man in the world!
Not by a slight chance. Most of these videos are filled even to the brim with predatory monetization like sponsors, giveaways, and even intrusive calls to action to either leave likes and subscribe, so they can game not just the algorithm poorly, but also game the revenue more than MrBeast actually tries to do. They just try way too hard than MrBeast himself. And I know, yeah, recently MrBeast has sponsors too, like Shopify, but all of these MrBeast clones monetization is more egregious and forced in comparison. But I found a particular funny cherry on top, which is very telling of these MrBeast clones. You know how MrBeast made videos where he gives away money to someone else, like a huge sum of money, or even does something like, I don't know, curing blindness of 1,000 people, right? I tried to see if any of these MrBeast clones started replicating these exact videos, and none of them did. Not at fucking all. I have no clue if this is because of budget constraints or something, although after seeing them buy a whole 250 crates of Amazon products, I highly doubt this is the case. But they miss the philanthropic point of MrBeast completely, so much that they're willing to exploit this genre of challenge videos and the sort to maximize profit and hoard the most money possible without giving it back to anybody. And that's the depressing thing about it all.
How do you guys get to work right now?
By bus, but in night the bus is not coming.
So you walk sometimes?
Every time, bro.
So you guys really need this car?
Yes, man.
These guys right here are trying to buy the car and they really need it. So I'm gonna buy it before them. We're gonna customize it and then give it back to them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure anyone so desperate will like a stunt like that to be done in their car. Oh, don't worry, he gets back the car in the end. But I know it's now a lousy Ronaldo car. Granted, some of his videos give away money prizes to some people, like in some MrBeast videos. But I feel that either these are filled to the brim with paid actors, or either they're paid to just employees. And granted that not everyone has a shady sponsor behind or any kind of predatory monetization. But I still feel dirty watching these videos knowing that the only reason I can find these people aping MrBeast is to simply emulate his earnings and not his spendings. It is very clear there's a monetary incentive behind these types of videos. It's no wonder they're trying to replicate even to the bone of his work ethic, but not the philanthropy of some of the MrBeast videos. These stingy, greedy assholes are a plague, a pandemic on YouTube, and people are becoming growingly tired of this. This cancer spreading on YouTube must fucking stop.
Although I'm gonna comment on something funny though. Remember the guy I showed you earlier giving back a Ronaldo car to a guy who wanted to buy the same car? That's Matthew Beem, who similarly is even rubbing shoulders with MrBeast, being a MrBeast clone himself at some degree. At first glance, he might seem like an ordinary MrBeast clone, with the same style of thumbnails, sometimes ripping other people off, including MrBeast himself, and even has a gaming channel. But I did some extra digging, and well, things are not turning fine so far. I think it might be regarding his follower to engagement ratio or something, and yeah, okay, this video is gonna be about Matthew Beem, isn't it?
I find it particularly strange that for a guy like Matthew Beem with over 5 million subscribers barely gets on the same video with slightly over 1,000 comments for 3 million views. His Discord server makes it worse, since his own Discord server is roughly about the same size as our own JMAA Nation Discord at the time of recording this, with below 100 members and barely any activity. It's mostly a dead chat. The Stokes twins say his video doesn't help that case either. Sitting around 5.9 million views, it barely has slightly over 9,000 comments, and they are a channel with over 25 million subscribers. Something doesn't add up. One of the twins' Instagram page has over 5 million followers, but barely the comments on them posts make up to above 6,000 comments mark. So I did an Instagram audit. Turns out they got a good score in terms of not having too many fake followers, but engagement is really low, like below 10%. At least they don't seem like they have too many fake followers, so I give them credit for that, although I don't really post regularly on Instagram that much. So I thought to do the same with Matthew Beem, so I did an audit on him and yeah, that score and engagement is not as good as the Stokes twins one. What the hell is going on here?
In a similar fashion, our friend Matthew Beem has nearly 100,000 followers on Instagram, but not even Denver's code can make it good engagement numbers here. And it's really telling because some of the comments there in the post are considered spam in some way or another. Matthew Beem, who surprisingly enough, shows a whole underbelly of MrBeast clones who are artificially inflating their follower accounts and such to make it seem like they're really good alternatives to MrBeast himself or so. But if Matthew Beem has a fake followers on Instagram, surely he doesn't have any on Twitter, right? You'd be in for a shock. Any of his latest tweets for a Twitter account that has over 16,000 followers barely reach at most 50 likes or comments at all. When I asked pertinent questions to Dr. Wallace Beem's Discord server regarding the follower to engagement ratio, one particular user, not an admin or manager, nor Matthew Beem himself, mind you, said Beem was shout out on his Instagram for a price of $100, but evaded my question when I asked for proof. Later afterwards, the admin spammed me from his Discord server. Is there something you're trying to hide, Matthew? I know it's pretty easy to throw accusations of botting followers or engagement onto any account on social media, but it's still pretty telling that people know what they choose when they try to watch the same type of content that MrBeast does. It's like the purchase preferences on a grocery store. Normally, the brand that gets marketed the most will attract the most consumers, and MrBeast and his clones are no exception. Even then, I was about to nearly open a whole can of worms with other MrBeast copycats, where I will find out more of these tend to artificially inflate their viewership or following, but I don't want to do that. I want to finish off this video, and I realize I might never achieve the same word count as H. Bombergast's video on plagiarism ever, nor his massive video length and girth. Just because I want to suck up on that length and girth doesn't mean I want to replicate it exactly on my own for the sake of my own sanity. Even though a person like Matthew Beem movie can rub shoulders with MrBeast himself, the preference is always MrBeast himself. They're all the bottom feeders here. This is the underlying effect of the MrBeastification of YouTube. People are becoming tired of all these clones trying to imitate MrBeast in every single aspect, that when wanting MrBeast type of stuff, they just watch MrBeast and nothing else. Anyone else gets steamrolled, showing how futile trying to pursue MrBeast's success tail is. There's no more than one reason to stop this trend. Quality content that is not just slop speaks for itself, and H. Bombergast's video on plagiarism is evidence of that. This type of content is the content you grow up too old for at some point. And as people grow up too old beyond these MrBeast copycats, so they become irrelevant pieces of garbage lying around in the forever graveyard that their former careers compose. But instead, they keep struggling like dying animals. They try to cling to every single bit of relevancy possible, copying each other off, inflating their numbers artificially, monetizing their videos ad infinitum, just so they end up milking this dying trend. The cancer is showing its final stages, and with that, it can only lead to death.
Oh no, now I got too much into the underbelly of MrBeast clones and I accidentally got into this rabbit hole of recommendations here. I have to sit through again through unskippable ads to know how this fucking guy has built his own fake Burger King or something, which is not really, he didn't open it for shit. It already was there in Australia, fucking goddamn hell. No, in Australia it's called Hungry Jacks, and he goes on a weird experiment where he builds his own Hungry Jacks and allowing people named Jack to be served. What the frick? Oh, Jesus Christ, he has the fucking charisma of a fucking steak. And about 1 minute and a half in, there's already again 2 unskippable mid-roll ads. I think there might be also a huge correlation between MrBeast clones and YouTube pranksters on your... That's funny. Our friends Stokes twins were also pranksters who faked an armed robbery and got themselves in trouble for it. The titles even get into creepypasta territory, with this guy who has survived the longest in a place that never gets dark. That's some Aaron Lung tier stuff.
Right! Hello, my friends. Welcome to Alaska.
Oh, it's Alaska. The most kind of normal, natural place in the world to be in. Conveniently 5 minutes in, they got the ad for the loudest car gadget in the whole planet.
Carly is a game changer. The data and expert advice are what I needed to better repair my car. Very specific advertising, isn't it? Especially considering an audience of preppers and kids. I don't think a 12-year-old is going to drive a car unless you think he can repair it. And you can tell me that I can get the premium package for €1 extra than the basic package? Wow, sign me up, please. Carly has problems. A lot more problems than pros, considering the reviews I can find of the service and product. It is, by definition, a waste of money. Do not spend money on this thing, not even for your favorite YouTuber, Will N.E. Although nobody in the right mind will want to spend money on all these MrBeast copycat hats, let's face it. And now let's all set aside this whole rabbit hole of MrBeast clones and move on to the topic you all wanted to hear about. Why the hell is this a thing, scientifically speaking, of course?
I have a question for God. Why?
Okay, yeah, I get it. Not everyone is literally copying someone else on YouTube for a monetary gain or for clout. I get that. I am a case example of that fact. There's a common ground where creatives start off every time, and that is copying or say reverse engineering someone else's creative work all the time until you find your own voice. Art does not exist in a vacuum, and we as creatives, even on YouTube, are the sum of everyone else's parts in our lives' influences.
I found this book doing research on people who covered the same topic of copycats on YouTube, especially in the terms of MrBeast clones. Finding this video from Calling in Salmon called The Copy and Paste Culture on YouTube, The book is called How to Steal Like an Artist and has been written by Austin Kleon, who similarly appeared in the said video. No one is born with a style or a voice. You don't come out of your mom's womb knowing who you are. You are mostly under the influence of your mom and dad and your other ancestors, and even genetically speaking. That's why I share the bad temper of my dad I used to have alongside the creativity of my own now deceased mother. Genetically speaking, even myself, I'm a mix of between both my parents. We learn to imitate our heroes, we learn copying people, and we're talking about practice, not just plagiarism, because plagiarism is taking credit from someone else's work. Here, according to this book, copying means reverse engineering, like a car mechanic taking a piece for the car to know how it works. We take a lot of pieces from others' creative works to learn how it works and how they were successful in the first place, and that's why there are so many MrBeast clones, because they at least can grab a piece of MrBeast to know how he was successful in the first place. A good copycat honors, studies, gives credit, transforms, and mixes from many inspirations and influences they have in their lives, while a bad copycat just steals from one with the whole intent to take credit from them and make it as their own in an intent to degrade or even scam everyone in the process for personal gain. A good copycat transforms into something new, and a bad one just plagiarizes. There's also the fact that copy-paste culture existed since the very beginning. It is a much deeper primary aspect of a social technological system than the whole internet. This is a pertinent question back in 2003, when we assume we could get so much value from something for free, like the Napster MP3 of Donald Duck getting a blowjob. The internet, despite anything like being able to file a DMCA on a platform like YouTube, is nearly lawless in regards of replicating data, or even the identity of someone. Like say someone tries to be me on YouTube and is an exact one-to-one copy of JMAA TV. What am I gonna do then? Call the cyber police? I know it's morally and ethically dubious, but I really doubt the authorities are competent enough to know if they're really infringing my copyright or my trademark at all point, since especially I'm just a YouTube goofy goober and not like a corporation with tons of lawyers. This system, however, allows good actors to feed themselves pieces of certain content creators and make their own voice, as watching content creators still is somewhat free of charge. Artists on the internet have equal ways and easier ways to consume other people's art and be influenced by it. That's the nature of the internet.
But there might be something deeply rooted in the psyche of these people, myself included, to actually imitate someone else on the content creation sphere. After all, we're not wanting to earn as much money as MrBeast has or as much reputation as AVGN has for literally nothing, right? One thing is aspiring to be the sum of all parts of certain MrBeast and his clones, but another is to just rip a certain person off with everything. Most of the cases we mentioned earlier have a financial motivation to emulate a fraction of the original creator's financial success. There's an old saying that money or fame doesn't easily give away happiness. They're obviously high social status symbols. I don't think any rich billionaire can tell they're the happiest on the goddamn planet. I don't think Elon Musk, despite his billions, is right now the happiest man on earth, not by a slight chance. But usually, money or fame are nice evasions from our problems because they are used normally to pay away our problems, at least temporarily speaking. They don't fill our souls that much, but it's really telling that we can solve any sort of burden easier by just leaving, I don't know, a couple $1 million on the counter for the burden to go away. But even then, money and fame are finite resources, often stolen from other more unfortunate people. But you'll easily notice this resource is of a bigger agenda built by society and the system itself.
Alright, time to get into the sciencey stuff itself. In a study conducted by the Society of Research in Child Development in June 1969, written by Emily W. Herbert, Donna M. Goon Fund, and Donald P. Harmon, they investigated the self-esteem and exposure to an adult role model on children's learning and self-critical behavior, doing tests with polling games of the sort. They found out that self-critical behavior can be learned from adult models and through imitating them. This, of course, can affect the self-esteem of children. It's pretty usual that there are so many factors today affecting this dilemma and copycat phenomenon, but these so-called role models like MrBeast and other internet celebrities they tend to copycat to are oftentimes unrealistic standards of life that can be harmful to people. In Andy Bennett's and Brady Robards' book study, Mediated Youth Cultures, the Internet Belonging and New Cultural Configurations, they investigated girls who use the internet to consume popular media. Consumption of said popular media, especially online, lead to decreasing self-esteem, a negative body image, and below-average school achievements. Often it is also mentioned in the same book that ordinary activities online become a part of self-branding of sorts, as Marx calls it even immaterial labor, where every person builds their own personal brand on their own person. There's also something in the online youth as well. You see all this fear-mongering on mainstream media online about how 86% of American kids or something in that line want to grow up as influencers. And you see that same statistic parroted on Google results from various media publications. It's ironic because these are the same people who profit off of this shit. A study written by Shahai Zhang and Annabelle Gien in May 2020 proved that use of social media like Instagram can cause severe anxiety by sheer social comparison with Instagram peers and the sort by mere self-esteem. This is tested across a survey with 388 participants in Singapore and really implies heavily on education in a digital era. We're just not well educated enough in this day and age in regards to this, and a lot of that comes from being bombarded with false ideas about happiness, self-esteem, or even success for that matter. And it's especially jarring when you actually see the Instagram influencer scene in Singapore. Pretty much like anywhere else, nearly all of the top most famous influencers in Singapore are gorgeously, unrealistically attractive in looks, often flexing in a luxurious lifestyle too. It's no strange when looking at your typical Instagram models doing their thing. Most of these hold very unrealistic beauty or success standards to the average people who consume this social media. And it's no different on YouTube when usually the biggest earning YouTubers are role models to young Gen Z or Alpha. There's a similar particular trend I wanted to mention in this video, which is a TikTok NPC live stream trend, started presumably by TikToker Pinky Doll. Of course, it's really telling that I tried this very trend myself, but with a twist of being a literal Oblivion NPC, but it didn't work as well as others. A lot of these TikTok NPC creators can exploit their stunning, gorgeous looks for quick OnlyFans money and the sort, because this trend ties back to a cis heteronormative fetish that cisgender straight white dudes tend to have, and they usually call me a weird one. Weird that. If you are not made or born into these unrealistic beauty canons like a lot of these more successful NPC streamers on TikTok are, you will not be able to exploit the fetish at all. In fact, you'll not make it as an NPC streamer at all on TikTok, because you're literally stomped by hot chicks or dudes born with a privilege of looking more beautiful than you according to the same cis heteronormative standards. So you're screwed. Either way, there are still a lot of desperate TikTokers riding the bandwagon desperately because I think money and clout mean every bit of happiness to them. The culture of profit over anything that social media like YouTube or TikTok carry, especially the types of content that MrBeast clones or TikTok NPC Pinky Doll clones generate is, to say the least, damaging to our youth. And many of the creators that serve as set role models for young people on the platform are just there making the money, even by serving the picks and shovels of say youth. So say youth can mostly find nothing.
When watching Austin Kleon's interview on Calling and Sammer, you're presented with the issue that when artists are good thieves, let's say, they tend to grab some of the tiny individual pieces of all the voices that influence them and make their own voice using that, which is a great way to find your own voice. But Austin also presents another problem that our current landscape faces. It's so easy to share on the internet or social media whatever you create and for literally anything to gain virality. Hence why people just look at the metrics of something, whether it is views or engagement, and imitate them just to try to pull off the same metrics or more. You can easily blame hustle culture folks for that. It's not about finding our own voices through pieces of external inspirations or influences anymore. It's a corporate competitive nature that's about stealing everyone else's success. And that's a main drive for people to copy one-to-one thumbnails, titles, plots, or even ideas from other YouTubers. This can be argued even for people like the arid gamer or game dude, for instance, even for a YouTube landscape where it's not as easy to monetize content. Game dude might have seen the massive metrics something like the Angry Video Game Nerd had back then and said, oh, I want to have that too. And by that superficial approach of imitation, game, dude, it's just the same shitty games, the same swearing, nearly the same attire, the same backdrop, the same type of theme song with the same type of plot. He's the Canadian angry video game nerd, if not for the case that he's anything but the actual angry video game nerd.
Their flag is a fucking leaf.
MrBeast clones similarly tend to look at MrBeast not as a mere inspiration. They don't just make a piece of what made him what he is, what made him successful. They copy him entirely and even dare to copy other creators on their niche one-to-one on the basis that they'll maybe gain the same revenue than MrBeast. And it's probably the same case than the PewDiePie clones, Leafy clones, or even Reply girls for that matter.
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, usually speaking, but here it shows that people are just willing to ride bandwagons and imitate others because we don't want to validate ourselves to others with a higher social status than average. We get bombarded with the idea that a higher social status, whether financial or not, is a solution to our lack of happiness. To consume more, to spend more, to buy more things, and even to flex our earnings and spendings to anybody else. It is a superficial, banal, trivial pursuit that ends up with a self-revolting cycle where there's no end to the unhappiness and emptiness of one's soul.
Social media and its influencers have something in common. They cause a lot of harm to the global self-esteem of our future generations for money. It's very common in these types of videos to reach the same conclusion. Oh, what causes this problem? Oh, it's money, of course. But you have to ponder to yourself the deep implications of this issue. It's not just that this type of extremely exaggerated, wealthy, idealistic content is just causing depression in the global populace on the internet. It has severe consequences in many lives of our generations and the future ones. You can imagine already that at least someone has already committed suicide because they didn't hold up to the standards that Morix or MrBeast or AVGN even have held for themselves out of their own self-made success, considering how much competition there is on YouTube right now in regards of internet celebrities. In fact, we already at least got one in the United States, and they killed the people in the process too.
You already know the story behind Randy Stair, the so-called Danny Phantom killer that committed a mass shooting in 2017. Little do you know, he was also a YouTuber, or at least an attempted one, and a failed one. If you watch the archive of his oldest content possible, you know that he's attempted and failed every time to catch up and imitate the success of other creators on the platform, jumping on all sorts of bandwagons of content, even the ones that James Rolfe did, and none of them did gain him the enough traction possible to reach him the popularity he wanted. Eventually, through his Ember's Ghost Squad saga, the one that was inspired by Ember McLean from Danny Phantom in some way, he ended up shooting his workplace, killing a few people in the process before self-inflicting himself a gunshot, ending his life in the process.
The standards of success that AVGN, Leafy, MrBeast, and other YouTube celebrities have held, and everyone else wants to emulate for themselves, had led to such a detriment of someone's mental health and self-esteem so much that he ended up ending the life of himself and others. If it isn't clear evidence that these standards, as unrealistic as they might be, are harmful to society as a whole, I don't know what else is. God knows when their next MrBeast clone is going to end up so mad about not being able to recreate MrBeast's success that is going to end his own life, or other people's in fact. In fact, one of these MrBeast clones is also evidence of this, that due to his recklessness, actually slaughtered the life of innocent people, just with his lavish lifestyle and reckless spendings and ego.
In June 2023, a YouTuber from Italy called The Borderline, who's in another one of these MrBeast clones, killed a child in a car accident after recklessly driving an expensive car during filming his next YouTube video. The guy had 600,000 subscribers, a YouTube revenue of over 200,000 euros, and it's unsurprising how a man with such reckless ego will commit such an atrocity like this for views and money. The Borderline scrapped all evidence of his previous videos and this one from YouTube, but it was already too late. The government of Italy considered to implement a law that will punish people with up to 5 years in prison for glorifying such reckless acts of crime. It was also pretty evident that the driver back there was also tested positive for drug use, so the sentence will be higher, no matter how many YouTube apologies does a YouTuber make. This was not an isolated case of YouTubers with reckless spending and driving sports cars. In 2018, YouTuber Trevor Heitman, also known online as Max Skillet, was killed in a car accident with his car alongside a woman and her child while driving on the wrong side of the road and not being filmed.
The kind of sick, twisted shit that people do for views and money on YouTube, even by just copying these reckless stunts and the identities of those who commit them, is incentivized by the algorithmic monetary gain generated by YouTube's higher-ups on the platform, no matter if someone is dead in the process. If that gets enough algorithmic attention on a platform like YouTube, the vultures that run it will end up profiting off the eyes that they take in with those sorts of stunts. Society conditions our future generations, making them think that money or fame are the solution to their lack of happiness. And let me tell you, if I was rich and famous but had, for instance, no friends or was a massive piece of shit, I will definitely not be happy. I will be a miserable husk of a human being wanting perpetually to die inside, and all the money and fame I will have will only exacerbate all those problems, especially privacy-wise. The people telling you that money and fame are the way to solve your problems in life are rich, money-hungry fraudsters willing to exploit you for their personal gain. A lot of people fall for this fallacy. And so what? So a few privileged fuckers can rack up more and more cash on the top of other mediocre imitators who are desperate to emulate a fraction of success of these? I'm not here necessarily blaming James Rolfe or MrBeast, but even then, at some point, they should be responsible enough to tell their admirers that, hey, these standards are not real, and that happiness can be equally reached through plenty of other personal means. We've really grown up so desperate. Even myself became desperate at some point in my life because of this stuff. This is not the way to be. I even wanted to prove myself better than some people by trying to attain success, or at least emulate a fraction of the success people like I Hate Everything or H. Bomber Guy or Steph reached, and that's not okay. I can now hope I can reach some decent conclusions so I don't end up on a sour note. They can say imitation is a form of flattery, but at this point it's kind of confusing because isn't to them the kind of flattery we're doing, or is it to ourselves by imitating others? This reminds me of Guy Debord's writings in Society of the Spectacle, which is a piece of Marxist writing, and I like it because of that. According to that, we've grown so conditioned by technology around us that our lives become some sort of spectacle of sorts. Like, it's not wonder why we seek so much validation from others with social media or YouTube engagement by imitating other people on those platforms or even copying them. I can tell people like Morgs or the Stokes twins or even all those Leafy or AVGN clones are pretty empty people with no other purpose in life than to try to emulate a fraction of the success of the people they're copying or imitating. Like I said, it's pretty desperate. A trend that also tends to connect lately to this same sort of desperation, which is similar type of copycat effect, are AI automation content milk channels. You know, these channels with a robot voice recapping the plot of a movie lazily. All of these channels have a human behind pulling the strings, who's pretty much as desperate for money and clout as any MrBeast clone or similar, because the whole culture they built where money equals happiness for some reason. This culture of pursuing money for pretend happiness enables people to copy each other's success off by any means necessary, because we tend to think their success equals their happiness, even though it's clearly evidence it's a contrary, usually. But there's plenty of other imitators like Angry Joe or the Nostalgia Critic who put their own twists of originality into their stuff, and not just for chasing clout or money, but also because they grow an admiration for the creators they're inspired by. I've grown imitating people like IHE or H. Bomber Guy, but in the end I added my own particular type of twist into it, enough to make it my own, because I ended up appreciating their work in some way or another, enough to try and carry their torch in a sort of innovative way just as a pupil of theirs who learned from their mistakes and is an improved version of their craft. It's inevitable that we as humans are just the amalgamation of the personality of the people who influence us, or even the people we admire. But what we tend to ignore is the fact that these people make mistakes too, and we can learn from them to be better than them. I am nothing more than a mere amalgamation of the personalities of the people who influence me or I admire in my life. And that includes people like H. Bomber Guy, who at least serve as an ethical standard in this YouTube community. You're already seeing that I already replaced the titles of the academic sources in the corner of this video, because I learned from his video about plagiarism. And you can also notice that nearly all of the script I wrote for this video is, of course, my own writing and my own interpretations of said academic sources. I'm not just repeating the words verbatim of some article or anything. I cited my sources properly. You can also find them in the description of this video if you're so inclined to learn more. The main reason why I want to emulate H. Bomber Guy and the sort so much on this platform is not because I want to emulate his success. Far from it. I don't care if I have at this point 100,000 subscribers or something to be able to review D-Zone or some shit. All I care is about enjoying making this type of content. And I enjoy doing so because I can educate people, at least a minimum of them, into making society better. And that sort of legacy I'm leaving might inspire similar copycats of mine to follow my steps. That's my own measurement of success, and it's already pretty noble by itself. After all, it might seem at some point that the evangelists of ultraviolence will only grow bigger and stronger. If you're one of those people who are inspired to do the same goals and purpose as me in your content, thank you. It's probably the closest I can have to having children of my own. I can only hope you have the same ethical purpose as me, enough to drive you to do the same and improve society somewhat. And if you're successful at it, and this is the only H. Bomber Guy joke I'm probably going to steal, well, just give me your money!